Welcome to part 3 of our image analysis guidelines on chest and abdomen. As we move forward, we will take a look and review abdomen projections. In the AP abdomen, supine abdomen projection, image analysis guidelines state that the spinous processes are to be aligned with the midline of the vertebral bodies with pedicles at equal distances from them. The iliac wings are to be symmetrical. The sacrum should be centered within the inlet of the pelvis and is aligned with the symphysis pubis. The long axis of the vertebral column is centered on the projection. The fourth lumbar vertebra is at the center of the exposure field. The 12th thoracic vertebra, lateral body soft tissues, the iliac wings, and the pubic symphysis should be all demonstrated within the exposure field. And the next slide here provides you with all that image analysis guidelines we just reviewed. Image analysis guidelines for an upright projection are similar to the supine. The biggest difference we need to focus on is that the third lumbar vertebra is centered at the exposure field. You still want to visualize pubic symphysis and on up to the diaphragm, depending on hospital protocol. Some places may not include the pubic symphysis, but make sure that you check with your department protocol. Again, the next slide contains all the image analysis guidelines for your reference. Let's take a look at abdomen rotation. We know that failing to position the mid-coronal plane parallel with the IR for an abdomen decreases visualization of fat lines that surround the abdominal structures. So that is a major reason why we want to make sure that mid-coronal plane is parallel with the IR. Otherwise, you have some type of rotation going on here. To detect rotation on an AP projection, you want to compare the distances from the pedicles to the spinous processes on each side. You want to compare the widths of the iliac wings. We know that the iliac wing that is foreshortened is the one that is generally up, and the iliac wing that is elongated is the one that is closer to the IR. So in the second image here, we can see that the patient is in an RPO projection, whereas in the first image, the patient is in a LPO projection. You also want to evaluate the centering of the sacrum. The sacrum always moves to the direction that the patient's side is up. So in the first projection, the sacrum is closer to the right side, so that patient is in an LPO because that right side is up. And in the second image, the sacrum is closer to the left side because the left side is up, so that patient is in a RPO projection. In our first practice analysis, we can see this is a AP projection supine of the abdomen, and we can see that the pubic symphysis is clipped here. Therefore, you have an option of obtaining a single bladder shot, or you can repeat the projection and make sure your central ray is at the iliac crest. Our next image analysis is an upright abdomen AP projection. In an AP projection, we must have both domes of the diaphragm, and they're not included within this projection. So the centering was, or central ray was centered too inferiorly. We need to readjust that central ray 2 inches superiorly to obtain both hemodiaphragms on the projection. In this last upright abdomen practice analysis, we can see that if the lung field is demonstrated a little too inferiorly. So therefore, you can see that the lung field is at the level of the 11th thoracic vertebra, and this projection is always taken after the full expiration. So therefore, this projection was actually taken in an inspiration. So you will have to repeat this image to correct that inspiration error. So let's take a look at the image analysis for a lateral decubitus, left lateral decubitus. Image analysis guidelines are the same as for an upright projection. You can refer to those in the next slide. The biggest thing you want to be cognizant of is rotation in your lateral decubitus projections. It is very common to have some type of rotation just due to the body positioning of the patient. So let's take a look moving forward here. Again, we have the image analysis guidelines for your decubitus projection, but like I said, they're all pretty much the same as a upright projection. Central ray is going to be around the level of L3. Dependent upon your protocol at the hospital, you may need to include pubic symphysis all the way to diaphragm. So let's look at this left lateral decubitus practice analysis. This is a hot mess express. First thing is my eyesore. I am not for all the artifacts. If you can remove those artifacts, please do so. It takes away from your image quality, and it may be obscuring something that the physician may need to see. The first thing you can see is there is some type of obvious rotation here. We have some elongation of ribs and foreshortening of ribs. The pelvic wing of the right side is foreshortened, and the left iliac wing is elongated. This means that the right side of the patient is positioned further away from the IR than the left. Okay. Also, the distances from the left pedicles to the spinous processes are greater than the distance from the right pedicles to the spinous processes. So in order to correct all this hot mess express, we need to rotate the patient's right side toward the IR into the midcoronal plane is aligned parallel with the IR. And you could place a pillow between the patient's knees to help keep them in that true AP projection and remove all those artifacts if you can. That completes our image analysis guidelines on chest and abdomen. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and thank you for participating in the learning module.